Ms. Torres? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, ma'am. Watch your step, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, you may be seated. Adjust the chair and the microphone to your liking, and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Rachel Torres, Torres.
Ms.
And-
Iceland.
Thank you. Ms. Torres, were you at the McDonald's restaurant in the city of Waukesha at 1425 Southwest Avenue on February 4th, 2014 at approximately 4 p.m.?
Yes.
And at that time, who accompanied you there?
My fiance, Sean Mattis, and my daughter.
Okay. And how old was your daughter at that time?
At the time, she was 3.
At that time, did you observe a verbal altercation with 2 males at the McDonald's restaurant?
Yes.
And do you see, well, you've been here through the course of the trial, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you see both individuals in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you point out who these individuals were?
The gentleman in the plaid shirt, and then the gentleman in the back in the gray sweater.
Mr. Calderon, in order, the defendant and Mr. Calderon were identified.
Thank you. And had you ever met these individuals before?
No.
When you saw this altercation occur, did you know why this altercation had taken place?
I did not. They were screaming at each other, and I did not like the
Okay.
language.
And can you tell the court what they were screaming? What words were they using?
The one that I remember being used was "sick motherfucker."
Okay. And who was that used by?
I remember it coming from the defendant.
Did you at all ever see the other individual, Mr. Calderon? Did you ever see him in any way strike Mr. LaHote?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Calderon attack Mr. LaHote?
No.
Did Mr. Calderon ever attempt to steal Mr. LaHote's cell phone?
No.
How far were you from these 2 individuals at the time that this was occurring?
I was standing by the soda machine too. I was probably within 10 feet of them.
Okay. When you entered the restaurant, can you tell the court approximately how many people, how many customers were there in the restaurant at the time?
Probably a little bit more than a dozen, probably
Okay.
about 15 people.
Okay. And at the time that you entered, can you describe what was going on in the restaurant at that time?
Nothing. Everyone was sitting just at the tables, quietly, eating. When I entered the restaurant, there was nothing going on, just
Okay.
families eating, people eating.
When this verbal altercation occurred, what, if anything, did you do?
I had told both gentlemen to stop. There's young children here. I don't want my daughter hearing that, just to take it outside.
Okay. And did either of them say anything to you at the time?
The other witness had told me that if you only knew what was going on, you wouldn't be doing that.
Was that Mr. Calderon who
Yes.
told you that?
Yes.
And when did you observe Mr. LaHote in any way strike or attack Mr. Calderon?
No.
Okay. Did you observe anyone else approach these two gentlemen?
No.
Did you hear anyone call the police?
I remember someone saying they were going to call the police, but I do not know who it was until after the defendant had left. I remember the McDonald's manager said he was calling.
Okay.
I do remember another lady, before I started telling them to stop, say the same thing. You guys need to stop screaming at each other. There's children present.
Okay.
But
And
she-
this other woman that you're referring to, was she an older woman?
Yes. And she-
Older than yourself?
yes.
And you're approximately how
I'm
old?
30.
Okay. And did you see this older woman with any children?
Yes, she had a young boy with her.
Okay. Can you tell the court approximately how old you think he was?
5.
Okay. A little bit older than your daughter?
Yes. She did not approach them at all, though.
When-
She did not approach them. She was still sitting at her spot, and I was standing next to her by the soda machines. She told them to stop, and then that's when I chimed in louder and more
Okay.
aggressively to
Oh,
stop.
more aggressively.
Yes.
And at that time, you were how far again away from them? I'm sorry.
We had been within less than 10 feet.
Can you tell the court approximately how long this incident lasted?
5 minutes at the most.
What was your daughter doing at this time?
She was sitting at the table eating her dinner.
Was she aware of what was happening? Could you
My
tell?
fiance tried to keep her away from it, so she doesn't, excuse me, she does not know anything. I have never reminded her of anything that's going on, and as you see, she's not here today.
Okay. Ms. Torres, can you tell the court whether or not either of these individuals had any type of weapon?
No, neither of them did.
Did you speak to officers when they arrived on scene?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you tell them?
Well, an officer informed me of what was going on, and they just took my information, explained what was going to happen in the future. And
Did you tell them what you observed?
Yes.
No further questions. Your Honor.
Mr. Lote, your chance.
Thank you. I don't remember you, just so you know.
Okay.
I do remember the incident. And
Mr.
it's-
Lote, I mean, that's statement, not testimony. Or that's testimony, not questioning.
The questioning date is February 14, 2014. Do you remember being at McDonald's February 14, 2014?
Not on the 14th. On the 4th.
Could you be mistaken?
No.
You're absolutely positive it was the 4th.
That I recall, yes.
Okay. Do you recall me there?
Yes.
Do you recall me walking around?
I recall you with the other witness. I don't remember you walking around until the argument happened.
Do you remember if I had any electronic equipment on me?
I do not remember.
Did you observe me doing anything that would offend you?
Not me, because my back was turned at that time.
So at that moment, you pretty much didn't pay any attention to me.
No.
Do you remember the first thing you heard about the argument?
Just that you guys were screaming at each other.
Do you know why?
No.
You had mentioned, or you had made a comment, whether or not either one of us were armed. Did you take a close look at myself?
No.
So do you know if I was or was not armed?
I did not see you armed. I didn't study your body or anything that was going on, though.
Did you see how close the two of us were?
You guys were within inches of each other.
Correct. Did you see anybody push or shove anybody?
No.
Make any fast moves or turns?
No.
Rush either one of us?
No.
What do you remember us saying?
I remember you guys like screaming at each other. I remember you calling him a sick motherfucker. And that I then said, stop you guys, there's children here.
Do you remember me saying anything else?
No,
So as far as you remember, that's the only thing I said?
that I recall.
Do you remember the older lady that you spoke of?
Yes.
Do you remember the conversation that she had with me?
No,
Did we have a conversation?
not that I recall.
Do you remember her saying something?
I remember her saying to you guys too to stop. There's children here.
And you don't remember me replying to her?
No.
Where was I at that moment?
We were all by the soda machines.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
After Mr. Cauldron told me what was going on, you went to your table, got your stuff, and left, and I followed you out there to get your license plate.
Okay.
And
How long would you say that took?
4 minutes, 5 minutes, you got your stuff and you left.
And I hate to
Did it
be so
quickly.
critical about it, but it's a small restaurant.
Exactly.
And 4 to 5 minutes is a very long time to walk from point A to point B.
Okay, so maybe it took 3 minutes. You
Some people
gathered-
can get very technical. I just question the time, the length of time it took. Because my point is I'm getting at is it doesn't take 4 to 5 minutes to walk from that small restaurant out to the parking lot. We're talking more like 30 seconds.
Yeah, the
is what
court's
I'm
going
saying.
to jump in here.
But anyways,
We're getting
we can
a
move
bit
forward.
afield here because actually you're misstating the answer that she gave. She's indicating, at least to the court's perception, that the entire incident was about 3-4 minutes. And the questions that you're answered suggest a different scenario, which does not accurately state the predicate. But for whatever value it is, it was a short period of time and we can move on.
Thank you. Do you recall anybody else speaking to me?
No,
Do you recall any employees speaking to me?
no,
Did I speak to anybody else?
no.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Ms. Iceland,
Just a couple of questions, Your Honor.
thank you.
Ms. Torres, I think Mr. LaHote asked you if you saw anything that he did that offended you. If you had seen him recording your 3-year-old daughter when you were not around, would that have offended you?
Yes.
Why?
Because he doesn't know my child and he should not have a video recording of my daughter at all, or pictures or anything on him. I would not allow that. I like my privacy. I like her privacy.
And I think you indicated on cross-examination also that you were the one who got Mr. LaHote's license plate, correct?
Yes.
And when you got his license plate, what did you do?
When I ran outside to get it, I ran outside, copied it down, and I gave the license plate to the officer.
And do you remember what type of vehicle he was driving?
It was black. That's all I
Did you
remember.
give this license plate number to the officers when they arrived on scene?
Yes.
Nothing more, Your Honor.
Mr. Lote, do
Thank
you have
you.
any follow-up?
I do.
Go ahead.
How many officers responded?
I remember one officer being there.
Pardon?
I remember one officer being there.
No other officers?
Just one officer talking to me.
Was there any other witnesses?
The other witness that was already talking, Mr. Calderon, today.
Was there any other witnesses that spoke to the
I'm
police?
going to interrupt at this point. You don't have to answer that question because that presumes knowledge on the part of this witness, the conclusion that she knows who was a witness and who wasn't. Also, it's beyond the scope of Ms. Iceland's questions, so whether or not there were other patrons in the restaurant, that was asked and answered. She said there were about a dozen other people. Whether people were witnesses or not, she can't look into somebody else's mind and know. So that line of inquiry is shut down.
I just was wondering if she had observed any other officers with any other witnesses. Just an observation.
And what relevance that would have, I don't know, but we can move on. We're getting
Okay.
late in the day, and we want to get to the important things,
Okay.
okay? Because I want you to be able to have an opportunity to get that video in and for us to see.
Absolutely.
Because
I really
you've
don't have a
indicated that's
lot of
critical.
questions for her anyways. I don't remember her.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't have
Well,
any
then- Then unless Ms. Iceland has something further, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor. No.
All right,
Thank you.
next witness.